Good morning. It is Anthony Iannarino, and I am sitting in for Jeb Blunt, who was called away to do important client work. So I'm here today in the Women in Sales webcast with Alice Heiman, keynote speaker and trainer, Alice Heiman, Inc., Sheryl Franklin, the MD of Sales at UPS, and Laura Posey, a strategic planning expert and speaker. And today we are here to talk about prospecting secrets of top earning salespeople. This is just one of my favorite subjects. Jeb just wrote a book called Fanatical Prospecting, so I think he probably teed this up so that I could promote his book for him, which is still probably #1 on Amazon. So I'll just say good morning to everyone, and then we'll dive into a bunch of questions. Good morning, Alice. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing great. Looking at some beautiful snow here in the mountains in Reno, Nevada.
You can keep the snow. I'm in Columbus, Ohio. We're going to be getting that soon. Well, thanks for being here, and good morning. Sheryl, how are you?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm wonderful. And where are you today?
I am in lovely Atlanta. Just stopped raining, so I'm starting to see the sunshine. So glad to see it.
Great city, as long as you don't have to get on the 285 for any reason, right?
As long as you don't have to go down any main road.
Yeah, exactly. And Laura, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great. I am in sunny Phoenix, Arizona, but I am headed back to Richmond, Virginia via Atlanta today.
Okay, well, and whenever we do these, people are always all over the place, speaking and training and doing the work that we do. So thank you very much for being here. And I want to jump right in and start talking about prospecting. And we've got a number of questions to get through today, so we'll get different views on this. And I want to start with the first question. And I love this question because it sort of leads to a big point that all of us probably recognize. And the question is, why do sales leaders find it so hard to get salespeople to prospect on a regular basis? And I like this question specifically because it acknowledges it's the leader's job to make sure that this critical activity gets done. Alice, do you mind starting us off here with this question?
Absolutely. There's so many answers to this, but I do feel that one of the biggest issues is the lack of training and really the lack of understanding of what is prospecting. There's some confusion about the difference between lead generation and prospecting, whose responsibility it is. A lot of salespeople are complaining constantly that they don't have enough leads, and some sales leaders feel that they should be generating their own leads and that that's prospecting. So I think there's a lot of confusion just around exactly what is prospecting and how to do it. So that's one of the issues, I think. And I feel like prospecting is a real specialty skill. Many of the salespeople that I know across the nation, once they get in front of a customer, they can do a pretty good job. They can ask questions and listen and find a fit if there is one. But the prospecting part where they're just beginning seems so much harder for them. And I think they don't know how to start the conversations. They don't have the information that they need. They don't have the skill set, and they don't feel like they're at the level sometimes of the people who they have to prospect. And so they're not comfortable having conversations with them.
I think you speak to something that I recognize more and more, Alice, and that is if you don't have the confidence and you don't have the confidence and you haven't had the training, then it's really fear that prevents a lot of people from making calls. And they are worried, what if they ask a question and I don't know the answer, or they're going to say no, or I'm going to get rejected. And you started off by saying, a lot of people don't even know what prospecting is anymore, and I think you're right. They picked up a lot of activities. Prospecting, I would define as it's reaching out to a customer to ask for an appointment, to begin to open that relationship or the opportunity of one, and that's scary to salespeople. So, what do you think about that with the fear, the fear component holding them back from that?
It's definitely fear. It's a mindset issue, but the fear comes from lack of preparation and lack of practice. And once again, I'm kind of back to my soapbox of great athletes practice. A baseball player doesn't just get up and swing the bat and expect to knock it out of the park. They have to practice, and salespeople don't practice. or they practice on their customers and prospects, which is not a good place to do the practice. And so we need to teach them what we mean when we say prospecting. This is what prospecting is. Then we need to be able to teach them the skills they need and have them practice those skills, and then have them do it and give them feedback, and then continue to have them practicing and better at it, so that they are comfortable picking up the phone, talking to the level person that they need to, engaging them, building rapport quickly and engaging them enough to get them to say, yes, I'll schedule an appointment with you. That sounds really interesting. Or to send an email that has great messaging in it that gets them to say, wow, I need to talk to this person. So we have to teach them what is prospecting and what our expectations are, and we have to help them practice. It's just something that it's hard to do. It really is not that easy. And so we have to give them the skills that they need, the tools that they need, and we have to make sure that they have the confidence, the mindset to be able to do that. Because even with the skills and the tools, if they don't have that mindset, they're not going to make it.
Let me just do a little round. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Nope, I wanted to say, let's do a little round robin and let me have some other people comment on the same one.
Anthony, this is Sheryl. I think you guys are right on point with that. A lot of times it comes down to the individual's, tolerance for risk. So at some point they've got to take that risk and do something that might feel uncomfortable in order to get better. To Alice's point, we've got to train, we've got to coach, we've got to make sure we've built up that confidence. But then we've got to make sure they jump. I can teach you how to dive all day long, but unless you jump off the diving board, it won't be impactful. You've got to get in the game and you've got to start swinging to hit those home runs. So I think it is a matter of also telling them it's okay. Don't be afraid of failure. If you never try, you'll fail every time. So I think it is a matter of training and coaching, and then also, pushing them to make the jump, and then making sure they get themselves in the game. Because as they have real world experience, they'll get more comfortable. They'll kind of get into the groove. They'll see what works for them. They'll see what doesn't. But they can't have such a fear and such a low risk tolerance that they just never get in the game.
Sheryl, you are you're a practitioner and you're leading a sales force. So this issue has to hit close to home for you. How big is your team?
I've got over 200 salespeople in my district.
Okay, so yeah, that's a big team to deal with, and I think you're right. I wrote this a few days ago. You just can't get better at any part of sales without doing it, and particularly the prospecting and the calling part. You're never going to learn to make calls, and you're never going to feel comfortable doing it if you don't actually just make those calls. And you're right. If they don't jump and they don't get started, then they never get that experience. And if they never get the experience, then they never get confident and they never start feeling better about it. It's almost like you use this metaphor of the diving board, but it's like swimming. You can't learn to swim in a classroom. I mean, that's
right.
Not how you learn to swim. You got to get in the water for that to happen. And the longer salespeople avoid it, the less likely it is that they're going to acquire those skills in a fast enough time to really succeed. Laura,
right.
Jump in. You want to jump in here too?
Yeah, I think it starts in the hiring process. Like, I think sometimes sales leaders are so focused on getting good closers, right? They're so focused on, can this person go in and sit down with a CEO or CFO and manage the relationship well and ask good questions and really do good discovery. And they're so focused on that they kind of assume that the salesperson they're hiring can prospect, and they don't test for it and look for it in the interview process. And I think that, some of the best sales leaders I've seen and some of the best sales leaders I've worked for have, number one, made that a part of the interview process, right? Like, tell me about your prospecting. How do you do it? What do you do? How many calls do you make? Like, they drill in right away, because they understand that if I can't prospect and I don't have a plan for that, and I'm not ready to do that, and I don't have a track record of that, it really doesn't matter how good I am in front of a customer, because I'm not going to get in front of any of them. And
well, that's right.
So,
you can't even get an appointment. That's the problem. You have no one to talk to. So it is just such a huge issue. And like Laura was saying, we don't test those skills before we hire, and then we just expect. And boy, I would never expect a salesperson to know how to prospect. I would If I didn't test for it coming in, as soon as I got them in the seat, I'd be like, all right, let's talk about prospecting and see what we can do. Otherwise, let's segment it and specialize it. Let's get people who just prospect, and then, people who just go on the sales calls. So, make sure that you have experts doing that prospecting.
Yeah, I have clients that just did that. He has six people on his sales team, and he realized he's got 2 people that'll pound the phones all day and make appointments, but they're terrible in front of clients who can't close to save their lives because they're fairly aggressive, and they're actually a little too aggressive face to face. But they're great. I mean, they'll set 7 appointments a day. They're just happy as can be to do that. And then he's got his other 4 people who absolutely hate to call, but they're closing machines. And he's just paired them up. And he's got 2 people now that pound the phones and set appointments, and they actually split commissions with the people that are doing the closing.
Interesting model. Let me move us through to a question that sort of lends itself to talking about the model. And Sheryl, I'm going to start with you on this one, if that's okay, because I know your company well enough to know that I think sometimes we think of prospecting as just the new opportunities that we create with prospective customers. But there's also opportunity acquisition. So some of the people that are on this webinar or who will see it on the website, they have to create new opportunities in their existing clients where they might not have all of the business, they might have a small bit of wallet share, or they might always be competing against a competitor for orders. So what's the best way to prospect inside your existing accounts, or what do you do to create new opportunities within accounts you already have?
Yeah, absolutely, Anthony. I will take that one because that is a huge portion of what my sales force does. We call those penetration sales, if you will. So we've got some of the existing business, but we don't have all of it, and it's really important not to neglect that. And also, if there's a competitor in the door, you never know when they're going to grab your business if you don't grab theirs first. So it's extremely important to know how to prospect in those existing accounts, and a lot of it is asking a lot of questions about their core competencies, about their competitors, about how they distinguish themselves, what their objectives are. So it's really important to know your client and then offer proactive solutions. So proactive solutions that will help them meet those goals, help them retain their clients, help them become more competitive in the market. And even from an expansion standpoint, where are you looking to expand? Are you going global? How are the ways that we can help you do that? So really, truly understanding your clients and then who some of the key players are. So who are the decision makers on some of those strategic initiatives, and how do you align yourselves with them? So making sure you truly understand what the company's objectives are, and then that way you can formulate your value prop, if you will, around what's in it for them, because that's what everybody cares about, right? What am I going to get out of this partnership? So really, truly having a fundamental understanding of the company and then who those key decision makers are, so you can begin to prospect and navigate to power to those key decision makers.
I think this is Laura. I think you hit on a key point. It's all about the who, right? And if you want to expand in an account, you have to know who it is that you need to talk to. And sometimes you can get that information from outside, but a lot of times it's going to come from inside. You're going to talk to the person that you have a relationship with. And I think so often we think, oh, they'll introduce me to the people who need my services. But they don't think like that. Like we think like that. We understand who our buyers are, but nobody else understands who our buyers are. So you have to, I think, look at your customer and say, I need to meet people who do this type of thing or who have this kind of problem. Who are those people in your organization? And get them to think about, so-and-so was just talking about this problem the other day. Or, I need to meet people who have this particular objective. They're trying to get this thing accomplished because I can help them do that. And you need to get them to think about individual people that they could introduce you to. And then don't forget to say, hey, can you introduce me? Right? And what's the best way to do that? Can you walk me down the hall? Can we schedule lunch together? Right? Sort of as a last resort, can we get on a call together? But making sure that you get that person who knows, likes, trusts you, and has already bought from you engaged in that first conversation if you can. Because they're going to say nice things about you that would sound like bragging if you said them yourself.
I love that, Laura, and so we think all the time about referrals being introduced me to somebody else inside another company, but you're saying internally, you've got to get a referral and an introduction internally, because all the people who are going to be able to benefit from what you do and who can help you create that next opportunity are unknown to you. And if you start asking for introductions, you can bridge that gap and create new opportunities.
Absolutely. And it also secures your existing business, because the person who's buying from you now may leave. And I'm a big believer that in any decent sized account, you need at least 5 contacts inside, right? You can't just rely on that one person. And you need 5 contacts in 5 different areas that deliver different things to you. So that if somebody leaves, gets transferred, goes on maternity, something, you're not dead in the water because your one person is gone.
Alice, I think I heard you pop on.
Absolutely. Yeah, agree with everything. What I want to do is take this up even another level. So, what's the best way to prospect inside of your existing accounts has to come up a level 2. Am I expected to prospect inside my existing accounts, and do I have the time to do it, and do I know how to do it? Once again, we as managers oftentimes have salespeople doing prospecting, cold calling kind of prospecting. We have them qualifying, we have them doing all the proposals, we have them closing the deal. Then we also expect them now to retain and grow the business. So it starts with, what is the expectation of the salespeople, and is this work segmented or not segmented? Whose job is it to prospect inside of your existing accounts? I mean, marketing could make a lot of headway to help you prospect inside of your existing accounts if they're doing the right thing. So that can happen, and I think that's an important piece of prospecting inside of your existing accounts. And then I also think that we have to set that expectation that you will prospect, and you have to have the time to do it, because a lot of salespeople are busy doing other things that they get paid to do because of the way we compensate them. So if we go ahead and compensate them on, getting appointments, that's one thing they're going to be doing. If we're compensating them on closing deals, different things that we're focused on. If we're not focused on them prospecting inside of their existing accounts, it won't happen. And I see it all the time. Companies are leaving so much money on the table because the salespeople land a deal and then go out and land another deal, and they don't even have the time to go back in and do the prospecting and nurture the customer and make sure they're satisfied and make sure they're beyond satisfied, so that they're not looking around for a new solution constantly. That nurturing process is one of the best ways to prospect. If you go in, make relationships, like Laura said, with 4 or 5, 6 of the people, know what they need, be in touch with them and adding value even after you've closed the deal. And then you have the right to ask them to introduce you, because you've done a great job for them and you've gone above and beyond, and they're happy to introduce you to the other people in their company. They're happy to buy more products and services from you. So we have to set it up, starting with the expectation and making sure that our salespeople have the time to do this prospecting inside of their existing accounts.
I love to listen to somebody just rattle off all the duties and all the expectations for salespeople. I mean, when you hear it listed out, you start to go, well, when do they have time to prospect, and how does that get done? It's a terrific question, and the list reminds you of all the things that we expect of salespeople.
Yeah, Anthony, and I think Alice hit on a key point as well, and it's helping the salespeople understand why they should spend their time on prospecting in an existing account, especially if there's opportunity there. Because if you think about it, that's much easier than trying to find a brand new client or trying to get your foot in the door on someone who doesn't already use you. Those are basically warm leads. We've already got that relationship. We've already got the partnership. And to Alice's point, if we've been taking care of them and fostering the business and relationship that we do have, it should be fairly easy to ask to navigate to the other key decision makers that we need in order to gain additional volume and additional opportunity. So it's important for the salespeople to realize as well, hey, those are low-hanging fruit, if you will, of the prospecting. They're there, they're warm leads, we've got a connection. That's easier than finding trying to send someone an email, and how do you get in the door of a company you've never been in.
Exactly. And, I ask a question, and I always get the wrong answer. My question to salespeople is, what's the easiest business you will ever get? And the answer is more business from your existing customers that know and love you. So if you sell them something and then nurture that and make sure they're satisfied, you can get more business with them, repeat business, other products. It's easy. What's the second easiest business you'll ever get? Referrals from those existing customers. But yet we go out and do the hardest thing, cold call, and try to get brand new business from people who have never heard of us, never heard of our company.
Let me move us to the next question, since you brought up the cold calling, because the next question in our series here is, what's your favorite form of prospecting? And I'll weigh in and go first and then hand this over. My favorite form, and what I still believe to be the most effective and fastest, is still cold calling. And as much resistance as that creates with salespeople, it's still faster and it's still more direct if you've got the chops, and as Alice said, if you've got the training and if you've got the skill set, and as Sheryl said, if you've got the confidence. If you've got the confidence, it's a really, really easy way. And before we turned this on and started recording, I was sharing just my own view as a business person. I see a lot of young people who say, I hate cold calling, and they're reading all these things on the internet that say never cold call again, and just try to connect with people and be responsive, and their pipelines are empty because they're not proactive enough. And instead, they're sending cold emails, which to me feels even worse than the cold call. And I now get very few calls from salespeople, and I think the cold call is a differentiator. That's my view, and you're free to disagree, but I'd love to hear from each of you on what is your very favorite way to prospect. Laura, you want to go first?
I'll start. I mean, my personal favorite way is referrals. And for me, part of that's just because what I do tends to be pretty long sales cycle, high ticket, and I want to walk in as close to the cash as I can, right?
You're
and a referral to me,
because of your spot in the industry, though, you're referable, so it's easy for customers to pass you off to the next person, right?
It is, some of it is, but you can be referable if you've got one client, right? If you, to Alice's point, if you do a good job for that client, then you can say, who else do I need to talk to? And again, you've got to be specific about it, right? Getting referrals is a skill, just like cold calling is a skill. But for me personally, I like to be able to call up somebody and go, hey, I'm really trying to meet this person over here, and here's why, and here's what I think I can do for them. And the person I'm talking to already knows, likes, and trusts me, and they're like, okay, yeah, I can introduce you. Something, great, let's put a three-way call together. And, just the other day I had one, I cannot get this prospect on the phone, cannot get her scheduled, and so I called back the person who referred her and said, hey, what do you think is the best option for me to do? And she said, oh, it's really simple. I'll just walk down to her office, and I'll get on her calendar right there, and I'll email you and tell you when we're going to talk, right? You can't, to me, can't get any better than that, right? I've got somebody else essentially doing the prospecting for me. So, that's my favorite. But back when I was in insurance and I had a very high volume business, it was cold calling. I made probably 30,000 cold calls at dinner time, right? I was that person calling to interrupt your roast beef, but it flat out worked.
Right, absolutely. I think it's important to understand, what is the definition of cold calling as well, because a lot of times people just assume, oh, yeah, I'm flipping through the phone book and I'll just call up random people and see if I can get an appointment. But I think we can get creative when it comes to cold calling and prospecting as well. So just when we're in the community, where we're involved in things that are, aren't necessarily just business related, just through our different connections, how are we finding leads as well? Are we constantly selling? Are we constantly looking for opportunity? If I'm at a community event, am I building my network? Am I building my network in the board I'm participating in, or the committee I'm in, and that sort of thing? And then using your connections and using that network to really result in additional sales leads, and making sure that we're not just separating the two, business and personal, if you will, because there's cold calling can be, when I attend a chamber event, and then just making sure I have those face-to-face connections. And then as I do, just make sure that I'm constantly looking for additional opportunity and asking, hey, can you grab a cup of coffee? I'd like to talk about what you do and how I can help. So those sort of things. I think broadening our horizon on what cold calling looks like as well. It doesn't mean I just get dropped off at a strip center and start knocking on the doors of each individual shop. It doesn't have to be that. So look for different events that you can get yourself involved with as well, and then just really always look for opportunity wherever you're at, whenever you're around people.
Yeah, I agree. I don't cold call, and I've never cold called, but some of my clients need the kind of volume that requires some sort of lead gen, like cold calling. However, I think we have to stop calling it cold calling, because we don't expect people to just take a phone book like in the old days, and I remember doing this many, many years ago when I used to work for my dad's company at Miller Heiman when I was, still in college, and would have me doing all that kind of, hey, call these people and find out who the VP of sales is, and you're just kind of dialing for dollars stuff. We do that anymore. We make phone calls. We educate ourselves before we pick up the phone, know as much as we can about the company, the industry, the issues in that industry, and we have something smart to say to somebody to help us set an appointment. So cold calling, I don't know what we can call it now, but we do need to do a calling to set appointments maybe to some degree depending on the volume needed. But for me, and I think for a lot of salespeople out there and business owners who sell, the events, the networking, the speaking engagements, those can be great prospecting. I think, like you were just saying, that if you're out at a community event, you can meet people and you can prospect at those events very gently. You're just asking questions, getting to know people, learning about them. And if you hear something interesting, you make sure to get their card and call them the next day and set an appointment so you can learn more. That's a really much more fun and easy way to prospect. Just get out and network or speak to a group, and then those people are automatically interested. A number of them will automatically be interested in talking to you further. So that makes for good prospecting as well. And then again, back to referrals, that's the main way I get business. And you can get a lot of business from referrals if you have a solid referral plan and you work that referral plan. But it's predicated on the fact that you have satisfied and loyal customers. Otherwise, you are not going to get referrals. But there's another way I like to prospect and get referrals, and that is through people who don't do business with me, but know me, like me, and trust me, and they have a pool of people they can send to me. For example, for what I do, I love accountants. Accountants are a great referral source. And I get, instead of having to cold call a company in town, I get an introduction, and that's much better prospecting. Those accountants all know when their clients don't have enough sales. And if they know what I can do, and I've been successful with some of their other clients, it's very easy for them to help me prospect. They're looking all the time for companies who don't have enough sales, and they go, wow, we think you should talk to Alice because you need some more sales. So I think that we have to be more creative and not just think that taking a list and calling through it, or taking a list and spamming email at it, bad email messages, that is really not prospecting. And you're getting a very low rate of return. So what's the point?
I got to make two comments on this, Alice. One, you're a total name dropper, dropping the name of your father into this. So I can't even imagine what that was like growing up with that as your dad, because all of us have read his books and grew up learning that system. So number one. And then number two, I don't know that the words "I really love accountants" have ever been said before on a webinar, at least not one that I've I don't know that anybody says those words. So that was a couple interesting comments. Let me move us to the other side of this, because we've all sort of acknowledged that cold calling still works and it's important, and that there are other things. Referrals are easier and better, but if you need volume, you might not be able to get there. But the world right now is consumed with social media and the idea of social selling. And the question for us to answer is, does using social media for prospecting really work? And I want to add some commentary to this question before I pass it over to you to answer this, because in my world as a speaker, as somebody who does workshops and does the work that we do around sales, social media works great, especially if you're a content creator and you've got the ability to message and get in front of people because they get to know you. So that's one. So I think we can talk about it and look at it through people who do what we do and people who have thought leadership. But I also want to think, Sheryl, from your view, what about the quota-carrying rep? How useful is it for them, and what should they be doing? So I'll stop there and pass it off to one of you.
Yeah, I think social media is an interesting form, and we actually were having a little discussion before the webinar began, about emailing and how easy it is to ignore. And I would say that's the biggest thing with social media. It's not that it's not effective; it can be, but I do think you have to be very strategic with your messaging, what you're actually looking for, and what that language looks like. If it looks and feels like a sales email or a sales invitation, or you're wanting to connect to sell them something, people are just very apt to just ignore that and move on. So I think if you can really start to think, okay, what am I really trying to do? How do I frame my message? What do I know about the company? What is going to be their outcome of this? And really framing the message around how it's going to help them, and trying to be less formal, if you will, still professional, but less formal, to where it doesn't feel as much like a blanketed message, or just the typical salesperson trying to get some additional leads. Because that's the tough part and the tricky part about social media. You've got to be really aware of what the overall goal is, and be very strategic with how you start the engagement.
Yeah, this is Laura. I think too, social media as a sole means of prospecting, like, am I going to go do social media and just get an endless supply of leads? No. If you're the sort of, quota-carrying salesperson, right? In our business, the way we do it, yeah, we do generate leads from social media, but we're content creators, et cetera. But I think social media is a great opportunity for salespeople. It's a great vehicle to build trust that sort of lays the foundation for all of the other prospecting that they're going to do, right? Like, if you're picking up the phone and you're cold calling somebody, and they've already gotten, a connection from you on LinkedIn with something really truly valuable, right? Not just some random link to an article or something that's really targeted to them. They've got a much higher likelihood of responding positively to that call. And if they've seen you all over LinkedIn and they've seen that you're providing value to a group or a community, I think that using social media to build that foundation of trust, to build that awareness and that visibility is really powerful, so that when you do reach out, hopefully not with just a stupid cold email, but when you do pick up the phone and talk to somebody, or you meet them in a networking event, or you meet them at a conference, they've already got some favorable impression of you. So you're farther down the pipeline than you would be without it. Having said that, it takes extra time, right? Every minute that you're doing something on LinkedIn is time you're not just picking up the phone and calling somebody. So I think you have to balance those two, and to Sheryl's point, make sure that it is very targeted, that it is very valuable, that it is very relevant, and it doesn't smell like sales.
I have the same sort of spin on this as you do. It seems to be more valuable above the funnel, and you still end up having to do the prospecting work later. But from the awareness and brand building and reputation and nurturing and proving that you're a value creator, it's very beneficial.
If you have a strategy, and that's the key, everybody's out there dabbling in social media. We talk about social selling. There's no such thing as social selling. You're not a website. You can't sell anything on the internet, You have to talk to people. So if there is a strategy in place, and again, what's the expectation? So we have a strategy. What do we expect the salespeople to do? Have we trained them to do it? And are we measuring it? So people are throwing stuff out here, throwing stuff out there, seeing what happens. They've got their marketing departments doing some social media. Their salespeople are doing a really poor job at using social media. And so does it work right now? I'm going to say probably not for most people. But it can be a great prospecting tool, and you can draw people to you. I know because I do it. I put interesting information out there. I have conversations with people all the time. I share other people's stuff like crazy. And then I get connection requests and messages in my LinkedIn, my Facebook, on my Twitter. Could we have a conversation? I'd like to learn more about what you do. How do you do what you do? I mean, I get these questions all the time, and that gives me the opportunity to get on the phone with them. Now I don't have to cold call them. Now, is it giving me the volume that, a big company would need? Probably not right now the way that I'm doing it, but it's giving enough leads to me that it makes sense for me to keep doing it. It can be a huge time sink. So again, what's the strategy? What's the expectation? Have we trained them to do it? How much time should they spend doing it? And how are we measuring whether it's working or not? And again, with any prospecting, I don't care if it's on the phone, through email, through social media, number one, salespeople have to be smart. They have to understand the industries they're going after. They have to understand the concerns of those industries, the legislation affecting those industries, everything that's impacting those industries. Then they have to understand the customer, that specific company, what's going on there, what's happening, what do they need, what's affecting them, and then the people who work there. And if they're not smart and aren't reading and aren't learning and staying on top of all of that, they have nothing intelligent to say. So of course no one wants to have a conversation with them. So we have to make sure, like Jill Conrad says, right? Agile selling, you have to be learning all the time so that people find you interesting and want to talk to you. So can it work? Can social media prospecting work? Absolutely, but not the way we're doing it out there. It's just all over the place.
And it's interesting what you say, because what any of us would do that would make us successful would cause one of Sheryl's salespeople to get fired. I mean, if they said this is our overall strategy, Sheryl's going to say, not here, it's not. We need you to be more deliberate about your prospecting methods.
Right.
Let me move us through. We've got a few more questions, and then I've got a couple questions from people here that we'll try to tackle if we have time. What's your best advice for a salesperson who's new in their territory and needs to keep a full pipeline?
I'll jump in. It's two things, I think. One, to your point earlier, the fastest way to get your pipeline built up is to get on the phone. If you've got a good targeted list, if you know who your best prospects are, and you can get a list of those people, it's getting on the phone, it's smiling and dialing, it's dialing for dollars, whatever you want to call it, and it's generating a lot of activity. But I also think that from day one, you should be doing the, who do you know and can you introduce me, right? Going to people that already know, like, and trust you, even if they're not clients of yours, but going to people that go, you're a good person, whatever you're doing, I know it's going to be good, and helping them understand exactly who it is that you need to meet, right? I need to meet human resources managers. Who do you know who's a human resources manager, right? Or who do you know that works at Capital One? And being really specific about who you'd like an introduction to, making sure they understand what's going to happen when they make an introduction, right? You have to calm their fears that you're just going to jump in there and go, give me all your money. And, making them comfortable making the introduction, and then saying, can you introduce me, right? Can we get on a call together? Can we go to lunch if it's local business? Can we go play golf, right? Whatever it is, but have that first meeting be that three-way meeting, because I think that just enhances your credibility so much when you're walking in the door. And so it's that combination of the high activity, high volume cold calling, but it's also layering in that high warmth and high probability referral, and making sure that you're doing both of those to get that pipeline full and keep it full.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it comes back to just getting yourself out there as well. What I see sometimes with newer salespeople is once they're new in the territory, they're they're kind of looking at the territory, trying to figure out where to go, who to talk to, all that sort of thing. But at some point, you've got to get your feet on the street and start hitting it and visiting your current clients, looking for the referrals, and then also cold calling. So it's a dual approach, but getting as involved as you can. Clients, are they holding events? Do they have speaking events anywhere that you can get involved with to not only network with them, but also the other companies that are attending? So just making sure that you're keeping yourselves kind of ingrained and active and participating and really looking for additional ways to generate new leads along with the referrals that come through with visiting current clients and that sort of thing. And also, when you're new in a territory, it's really a huge opportunity when you're talking about existing clients and prospecting in those, because you pretty much have the leeway to ask any question you want. You're new to the account, so you have the right to ask this sort of questions. A lot of times when I'm talking to existing salespeople that have been in a territory for quite some time, they sometimes are hesitant to ask certain questions or ask to go to over people's heads or ask for additional contacts because of the existing relationships they have or because of past situations or conversations. So being new, you really have, it's free game, if you will. So you can ask a lot of questions to get really networked in some of your existing clients and find additional opportunities because you are exploring the territory and making new contacts. So I think it's important to realize that as well. Ask as many questions as you can so you can get fully ingrained and find additional opportunity in some of those new prospects as well.
Yeah, again, I agree with all of that. And what I say to new salespeople is, number one, make sure there's time scheduled on your calendar every single day to prospect and don't skip it. Because I think what happens is they get busy doing other things, they're still learning, they're talking with people, they're doing lots of other things, and they don't really focus on prospecting in those first days so that it gets further out and further out and further out. So get it on your calendar, make sure you do it every single day. And what for brand new sales reps, it's like make a list, build a list. If they haven't given you a list, well, hopefully they've given you a list. Maybe they've given you some clients, but whatever, make a list or build a list, whatever you get. And then research those companies that are on your list. Take 10 at a time, research the heck out of them, and then ask everybody in your company and everybody you know, who do you know at any of these companies that you can introduce me to? Always try to do it the easiest way first. So get smart about these companies that you want to go after. Ask for introductions. And then if you can't get an introduction, make sure you have great messaging for whatever approach you're going to take. And I like salespeople to take multiple approaches. So let's say you've got 10 companies on the list. I want you to find 3 to 5 people at each company that you're going to approach. I want you to have a call guide for what you're going to say to get an appointment. I want you to have a voicemail message, a fabulous voicemail message written out, ready to go. I want you to have a great messaging for an email or a LinkedIn message, but have all the messaging ready to go and get somebody who knows how to do it to help you so that messaging is going to attract people, not repel them, and then deploy. So if you have time on your calendar every single day for prospecting, the first few days you're building your list, then you're researching your list, then you're cutting it down to the 10 you're going to start contacting this week, and then you've got all your messages written, and then you're going. Now, that is going to make a good prospecting plan with contacting multiple people at each company and having multiple ways to message them and great messaging. That can really work. Now, in some countries, you're not going to be allowed to do that. They just want you to pick up the phone and go. And I think that takes a lot of time and there's very small results. So try to get this other type of prospecting and do the preparation that I'm talking about so that you have really good results and you get your pipeline full from the beginning.
I like what you said, Alice. I think it's important that you do research once. So I like the idea of you take a stack, you build a folder, you print the LinkedIn PDFs, you print out the whatever information you need from the company's page, and then you don't have to do that again. You're confident dialing because you've got the profile in front of you and you don't have to go out and do any more research, at least on that account. Let me try to bridge us into the next question, which is a similar question, but this question was about if they're new. And the next question is, what if they already have an established territory that they've been calling in? And I'll share one idea, and I sort of want to bridge this. What I see happen to a lot of salespeople, they're in a territory. It's really exciting when you get a new territory and you're out selling, And then you find out what I call your dream clients, all of the accounts where you know you can just create massive value for them. They have the exact set of challenges that you solve, but they have somebody sitting in your chair. They've got a deep relationship, and they've told you no now for 4 years or however long you've been in that role because they have deep relationships, the kind that we have and the kind that keep our clients solid. So the question is, what's the best advice for somebody who has an established territory and keeping their pipeline full? I think that right now the biggest challenge for most people is that there's no compelling case for change built, and they don't spend enough time nurturing those accounts in their territory to build a case for change. And so they shoot for what they feel are easier targets that are people who are just receptive instead of people who are less receptive but who could help if they had a compelling reason to change to create that new opportunity. But let me hear from you on what about the reps who have a territory they've been working for some time and prospecting is now more difficult because they've been through a lot of those?
I'll jump in.
I'll jump in. Go ahead.
I think that the biggest thing that they can do is go bigger, right? I think a lot of times when you come into a territory and you think you've done it all, right? You think you've worked it all. What you've done is you've worked all the easy stuff. You've worked all the low-hanging fruit. You've worked all the things that you could get into fairly easily. But in every territory, there's a bunch of whales. And I think a lot of times salespeople are scared to go after them. They don't know how to get into that big account. And I think if you really want to maximize an established territory, you got to go whale hunting. You got to start looking at what are the 1, 2, 3 major accounts that are in my territory that I could land and really make a big, big difference in my sales, in the impact in my company, and in the impact in the community. I mean, you land one whale, and the first one's the hardest to get. After that, whales know each other. It's easier to get an introduction from one whale to another whale. And so I think that's the thing that, if I've got somebody who's got an existing territory and they're like, what do I do now? Go whale hunting. Go big.
Yeah, I think sometimes what I find with people who have been in a territory for quite some time is you've got to make sure that you don't get too comfortable. So I think Alice mentioned it earlier. When you have one client, how networked are you within the company? So a lot of times we'll build up, good relationships or good partnerships with some of the key players, but we're not deeply enough ingrained in the business. And when we've been in that territory for quite some time, we tend to gravitate towards those individuals that we've got a good relationship with. And I think it's important for them not to get comfortable with what they have existing there, and make sure that we continuously push forward and try to find additional opportunity even in some of those existing accounts. I think once you've had it for quite some time, you get comfortable, you think there's nothing else because you've tried it before, but things change so rapidly these days. The likelihood that it is the same in 6 months is very slim. So make sure we don't get comfortable with what we already know because of conversations we've had in the past.
Right, exactly. And again, it just goes back to the expectation. What am I paid to do? What's my compensation? What do I focus my time on? Am I supposed to be going out getting brand new business from customers we've never had before? Am I supposed to be reviving business from customers who haven't bought in the past 5 years? Am I supposed to be digging into the customers we already have and getting more business? We have sometimes crazy, ridiculous expectations, and our compensation doesn't match those expectations. So, if you are already in a territory and you sometimes become complacent or whatever it is, again, I just say put time on your calendar to prospect and have a plan. Who are you prospecting? Are you prospecting your current customers? Are you prospecting brand new? Are you prospecting the ones in the database that nobody's touched for all? Have a plan and put time on your calendar to do it. I really don't think it's that much different from somebody who's new in their territory. But again, we have to keep learning, keep growing, and be willing to do it. And if I have enough money coming in and my commissions are keeping me happy from the business that I'm doing, I may not be prompted to go out and prospect in my existing customer base or to get new customers. So again, we just have to set the expectation and make sure the compensation matches it so that salespeople can do it. And it's pretty simple. If you make a plan and put it on your calendar, you're going to do it. And there's so many different ways that they can do it that they just pick the one that works best for them and keep going.
Let me move us into a lightning round because we have one question left and we have two from the audience that have popped up that I want us to try to touch because they pertain to what we're talking about. So for the lightning round, let me start with our first question. What do you believe are the real prospecting secrets of top earning salespeople? And I will go last in this series, and maybe we'll just go around the horn. Alice, what do you think are the real secrets of top earning salespeople when it comes to prospecting?
Consistency.
Big
they
secret,
have a plan.
Huh?
Yeah, that's a secret. Well, I mean, I don't know if it's just one thing, but they have a plan and they work their plan consistently. Yeah, that's like as old as dirt. You just have to have a plan and you have to do it.
Consistently, good answer. Sheryl?
I would say drive, which if you constantly go after your goal, if you constantly, adapt to change, if you constantly go after, if you have that innate drive to make things happen, it will always happen.
I agree completely. Laura?
I think it's continuous improvement. I think it's understanding your conversion ratios and always working to get better at each stage of the sales process, right? I mean, if you get 10% of your calls turn into appointments and 20% of your appointments turn into sales, if you can just get 20% of your calls to appointments and 30% of your appointments to sales, you can make 3 times the money, right? You're not working 3 times harder. You're not even getting 3 times better. You're just getting 10% better at each stage of the process, but you can increase your results 3 times. And I think salespeople don't track those things. They don't know what their conversions are, and so they don't know whether they're doing better or worse. And so I think it's really focusing on getting better at your skills and getting better results that way.
I didn't want to have to give this answer, but now I have to, and I have the real secret. And of course, all of us have sworn that we'll never tell the real secret to better prospecting results. So we have
it's like magicians; we can't share.
Yeah, exactly. We've all taken the oath. We've all got the secret handshake, and so I mean, once you do that, you're not allowed to tell salespeople or sales leaders what the real secrets are. We just have to withhold that. Those are all, and I think just to add to what you said, it's all consistency and discipline and determination and continuous improvement and focusing on your craft. It's a whole bunch of things. It's never one thing. And there's no real secrets. I mean, if you want to know any of this, it's all out there to be known. And if you read and you're thoughtful and you listen to podcasts like this, you're the kind of person that's already getting better. Let me go through the lightning round with the other couple questions. So the first one is, how many touches should you make before you cross the line of persistent versus annoying, and what should be the frequency of these calls? I love this. It's the difference between persistence and nuisance. Anybody have a strong opinion want to start us here?
Well, I have a pretty strong opinion. This is Alice, and
bring it.
I just feel that if somebody hasn't told you no, you shouldn't stop calling them. And that's fairly simple. Have you called them? I've left 12 messages. Have they called you back? No. Have they told you to stop calling? No. All right. Keep calling, keep emailing, whatever. But the issue is, what's the messaging you're using, right? So if I have an idea for you, if I have a program for you, I have something that's going to impact your goals, something that's going to change your life and you want it, it's not annoying. If I'm sending you spam and saying, hey, give me a call back, I want to tell you all about my products and services, email me back, I want to tell you all about my products and services, you're annoying. So the first time is annoying and too much if it's not done properly. Persistence is an amazing thing, right? So if I've had clients, I don't know, I've worked with them for 2 years before they've actually ever bought anything from me because I was persistent and I kept adding value and kept adding value and kept adding value. And then one day they said, I'm ready to work with you. So any amount is too much and annoying if it's not valuable. But persistence with a valuable message is really the key. And people are busy, and it is not their job to get a hold of you. It is your job to get a hold of them. So if you've got something valuable for them, they want it, be persistent, and even if they've given you some clues that they want it. But you can try different messages that tell them you have something for them. Try different messages and see how they respond. But, you know, truly, if you've sent them a combination of email, LinkedIn, and phone messages, and, you know, 10 or 12 of those, and they haven't responded at all, they're probably not interested. And I do what I call recycle. I'll stop sending them stuff for a while, and 3 months later, I'll start again, and maybe they'll be interested then. So it could just be a timing thing. So I think most importantly, you've got to have a great message.
I'll absolutely second all of that. I can tell you when I used to cold call and for insurance, there were people, it took 3 years for them to finally say, you know what, I talk to you way more than I talk to the guy that I pay, right? Yeah, let's have a conversation. Let's see what the insurance looks like, right? And quite honestly, you know, the thing that I always tell people, you know, when they say, oh, I've called this guy like 7 times, you know, my first question is, so what's the name of the last person that cold called you? And they go, I'm like, you know what? Call the guy every week. He probably doesn't remember that you called, right? You're probably not being a nuisance. It's in your own mind, right? And, you know, to Alice's point, if they haven't said stop, right? Sometimes it's a timing issue.
I called a prospective client 76 weeks in a row before I won his business, and on the 76th week, he was really mad at me for calling again. But he asked me to come out and pick up orders because of the persistence. That was 76 weeks in a row. Sometimes you just have to persist. We're out of time, and I want to give each of you 1 minute to close up and to tell people, how do they find you? If we want to connect with you on the social web and learn more about you, where do we go? Let me start with you, Laura. Where do people go to find out more about you? And if they want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
So we actually, it depends. We're launching a brand new brand that's coming out January 1st, but I'm going to give your folks a sneak peek at it because the blog is up and running and there's some good information there. So you can go to simplesuccessplans.com. And if you just do /blog or you go to the homepage, you can get some good free tools there. We've always got lots of free downloads and interesting things that are really tactical. I love theory, but I like tactical, get down and do it stuff better. So simplesuccessplans.com is an easy place to get information. And you can just email me at laura@simplesuccessplans.com. I'm Laura Posey on Twitter. I'm all over Facebook. I'm on Facebook a lot more than I'm on Twitter. And you can get me a Laura Posey on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn a lot as well. And my door's open, right? If somebody's got a question, just ask me. I'm happy to help.
Thank you. Sheryl?
Hey, thanks, Anthony. The easiest way to get a hold of me is just via LinkedIn. It's Sheryl Franklin here in the Atlanta area, Managing Director of Sales. Also, I've got a Twitter feed, so you can look me up on Twitter. And then if you're looking for information on UPS or career opportunities, ups.com/careers, and they can do some research about UPS on that. But the easiest way to get in touch with me would be via LinkedIn.
I have a feeling that occasionally you need to hire people.
I do. I occasionally have some openings, yes.
Alice?
Yeah, well, I'm pretty easy to find too. It's Alice Heiman, Heiman. You know, on Twitter, I'm Alice Heiman. Facebook, I'm Alice Heiman. LinkedIn, I'm Alice Heiman. And I'm happy to connect and answer questions. All of us are. That's what we're here for. You know, we're ready to help. And I'm looking for innovative sales leaders who want exponential growth. Doesn't matter what size they are. If that's their mindset, have them talk to me. I'm happy to help.
Second generation doing that work.
That's right.
Well, thank you all very much for being here. I appreciate your time and your insights. I'm Anthony Iannarino, and I was standing in for Jeb Blunt at salesgravy.com. You can find me at thesalesblog.com. Thank you so much for being here. Do reach out to any of us if we can help you in any way. Everyone who is part of this panel will be happy to give you insights or give you ideas or help you any way we can. So thank you, and we will see you next time.